The following podcast contains explicit language and content that may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi.
Hello, welcome to the Get Spooky podcast, where two married guys share stories of paranormal encounters, urban legends, true crime, and other scary things from around the world. I'm Kevin.
Wow. Don't do that. The people already confuse us enough as it is. I'm Kevin. He is Andrez.
Yeah. I think it's so funny that still every time people are like, I thought you were the other one. Your voice is the other one's voice.
Like, you sound like your voice would belong to him. I'm
yes.
like, I don't.
It's always flipped.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, even though Kevin looks like a cholito, no. This is my voice.
Yeah. Although people have said that they can't tell our voices apart. And some people have said that it sounds like a third person. So
it's just Leo screaming in the hallway.
Yeah,
it's the third person.
The third person.
He needs a lot of attention while we record. It seems like every time we record too, he's like, hey, I didn't need you guys before, but now that you're busy, I want some attention. I need some pets and I need treats and I need something else.
Imagine how it feels having to work from home too. Constantly hearing that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of embarrassing when I'm in the middle of a meeting and I'm talking and all of a sudden I hear just Leo like screaming. I'm like, oh.
Shaking the baby gate.
Yeah.
Let me out. And you're like, sorry, that's just my child prisoner.
No, I don't think they could hear it, but because it has like really good like sound canceling. I don't know what I'm saying.
Noise canceling?
Yeah, because we have like a huge, like a really tall baby gate because our cats don't know how to behave with my parents' cats.
The other cats in the rest of the house.
So
we've been here almost a year, and they still, like, every time they see them, it's on site.
Yeah.
It's on site. It's crazy.
Leo has been behaving a little better. I have been letting him out more often, just kind of letting him smell around. But if he sees another cat, he'll just stare at them and then hiss.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
We know Venus on the couch, so she can't even leave.
Literally.
My daughter, my beautiful, like, lusciously haired daughter that loves me so much, she shit on the couch. And I cannot believe she did that. I'm still to this day. If I had not seen the video footage of her look around before dropping a deuce on the couch, I would not have believed it. I would have said, not my daughter. Yeah. Not my daughter.
Like, no, that must have been your other cats.
Now I get why teachers are like, I told the parent that their child was horrible, and they're like, no, my child would never do that.
Oh, my child would never.
I understand now, because I would have never believed that my daughter, my child, my fur baby would have done that. But she did. I saw her. She looked left and right, and she squatted down and she shit on the couch.
And she just walked away like nothing.
And she walked away like she didn't even try to cover it. She said, "F you," and then just left it there. That is so embarrassing.
But yeah, this is our second attempt at this episode, because we recorded yesterday, but we were 20 minutes in, and I was like, I don't feel right.
We both got like flu shots and like other shots.
Yeah.
We know we're late, but there's a lot of sicknesses going around, and we're getting older, because the side effects of those shots they took us out for a couple days.
Well, mine I just got yesterday, and today, like, I felt it yesterday. That's why I was like, I don't know. I kept explaining, and I was like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I just feel off. And then I was like, I don't feel like I'm making sense in this recording. Can we just try again tomorrow?
Yeah, it was weird.
And then literally this morning I woke up and it felt like que me dio una pinche like revolcada, like a truck. Like I just got hit by a truck.
You feel like little aliens came in through the window, picked you up in a little pillowcase, and then made you a piñata and then put you back.
And just beat the out of me.
Hell yeah.
It hurts.
That's literally how I felt the other day, but I thought it was so weird because when we were recording, I would say something and you would look at me and you would like raise your eyebrows, and I'm like, okay, I guess not. Like, I was making jokes and you were like, that was weird. And I'm like, damn, ¿qué le picó en el güey hoy?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just out of it yesterday, but I'm better now.
No, yeah. When
like
I realized.
I took several aspirin. I took several ibuprofen.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I got was different than what you got. Yeah. I got a flu shot and a COVID shot. Yeah. And I wasn't supposed to get the COVID shot until I was like at Walgreens, and
that lady sold
the
it to you?
tech, she's like, do you want to just include the annual COVID shot? And I was like, sure. I was hesitant on getting my flu shot because I know that they're not expensive, but I would rather my health insurance cover it.
Yeah.
So I got it, but then
I got it. Let's rate it 1 through 10.
What?
That's what
this is like my
the TikTok rating
third,
people
right?
sound.
The third COVID shot.
Yeah.
Do you remember like 5 years ago?
Dude, that was crazy.
When they told everyone they was gonna implant chips in us.
Oh my god.
They're like, yeah, you're getting a Frito.
We were all gonna die 10 years, and I'm like,
yeah.
I look at the time going by and how my life's going, and I'm like, damn, I'm so glad. I'm counting down the days, counting down the days.
You're getting a Frito chip. Right here.
Yeah. Do you remember, like, and it's crazy talking about it now because it's like, we had COVID shots. Remember, we had to go somewhere to go get a COVID shot. It wasn't like at Walgreens.
Yeah.
I went to like this big ass building where like 50 or 60 people were in line, and I had to sit down and wait. And somebody came by and asked me if I was feeling well. Remember? It was just like a completely different time.
I got mine at a mall.
Yeah.
I got mine at the Crossroads Mall in Moore, Oklahoma.
Wasn't it Sooner Mall in Norman?
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, completely.
Where's Crossroads?
There is Southside Oklahoma City.
Okay, I was close.
And that's Plaza Mayor now to you, sir. It's been that way for like 7-8 years now.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
I don't even think it's there anymore. We left. We don't know what's going on.
I don't
know
what's happening over there. But what I was gonna say is, I remember I got mine, and you have to wait like that 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like looking around. I was looking around at people, and it's like, okay, is anyone acting weird? Like, should I be acting weird? Should I be feeling something? But then afterwards, I was like, wow, that was nothing. And I think my first one, I got like a weird reaction where I was just sweating a lot.
I do remember that.
And my second one, nothing.
Yeah.
So
I remember that nothing happened to me, actually. I was fine. I think like I was getting anxious. I'm like, am I feeling something? I think I'm feeling something. I think my heart, because I was anxious, and I was like, oh no. And then I was like, this is just my anxiety, and I calmed down. But before we get too far into it and like kind of go off on a tangent, I should have done this first. But I want to remind everyone that we do have immigration resources in the link in the bio and on our Instagram.
Yeah.
So you click on our All My Links, and you'll be sent to our All My Links page. And we've kind of got some sections going on. It's the immigration resources section, the support Palestine, and the podcast links. So we've got ¿Cuáles son tus derechos si ICE llega? That's an article by the Inquirer, Know Your Rights If You Encounter ICE. It's by the organization NIJC, which is our English language resource. And then we've got a link for NIJC and then ILRC, which are two organizations that are helping people that are being detained by ICE. Those are like law organizations.
Okay.
Yeah. So just reminding you guys. And again, I'd like to mention it. We're not monetized. We're not asking you guys to send us money. And a lot of you always mention that you would like to support us. Instead, right now, the best you can do is go ahead and support these organizations instead.
Yeah. And we appreciate the support too. Like, even you... Like anyone listening to us, like we appreciate the support. So
you guys don't have to give us money. That may change in a future. Who knows? But we would rather you guys donate to that because that's where the money is needed right now. Yep.
Also, I plugged it last time, but Barrio Drive, the brand is offering like DACA renewals. Like if you buy, or you can donate money directly, or if you buy like shirts from their like DACA support section, all the money goes towards supporting DACA renewals. So if you guys are interested, I recommend that.
Absolutely. Also, happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month
to all of our Black listeners, any Afro Latinos that we have listening to us. Happy Black History Month.
What else?
What else did we talk about yesterday?
I don't know. Honestly, listening back to it, I was like,
It was a
girl,
fever dream.
it literally feels like it. That was wild.
What have we been up to lately? Let's see. The weather's
Nothing.
getting nicer.
Mm-hmm.
So, we kind of talked about it yesterday, how like it's kind of bittersweet that the weather is getting nicer, but there's like a lot of bad things going on. We're trying to stay positive, probably as much as you all are, but I don't know. It feels kind of ominous and weird that like the weather is changing. It's getting nicer. The sun's out for longer, but it's just like there's very sad things happening. You know what I mean? So it's like you want to be excited, but then you also feel kind of torn because like there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And it's just like a very weird situation. So it's like I really like urge people not to feel guilty if you feel like you have to step out and like go for a walk and things like that. Like sometimes you have to like disconnect for a minute from what's going on because you will affect your mental health if you don't.
Yeah, and the last thing you would want to do is to start spiraling on social media.
Yeah, I honestly, I had to take a break from Instagram, basically all my socials other than TikTok. And even like TikTok towards the middle of like my break, I was like, dude, I'm gonna have to get rid of this too, because and all anyone ever talks about is like, I just kept getting bad videos. It seems like when TikTok went away and came back, all of a sudden my algorithm was kind of messed up, and I was getting a lot of like conservative videos, and I'm like, I don't want to see this.
I felt like I got that too. Like the vibe was just off. It literally felt like the app was buried in like Pet Cemetery, where it's like it came back, but it came back different.
Yeah, it was a
So
little
I'm
weird.
like, this is. I don't know. I don't recognize you anymore.
Yeah, and I feel like it seems like I know like people hate talking about it, but I've seen like on social media and like I've felt it like people are feeling more brave talking about the election and Donald Trump at work, or just like in places that you've never heard or don't really hear about politics. I feel like people are definitely feeling a lot braver and empowered to talk about their shitty takes.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like not very happy about it. Like it's like when I go to work, I go to work. Like I'm not there to make friends, I'm there to make my money. And so it's like when somebody's talking about some dumbass shit, it's hard to get my job done. And it makes me feel unsafe. It makes me feel like the people that sometimes maybe you work with don't really like you and they're plotting against you. It's like it's just a whole other thing. And I keep seeing videos as well of other people feeling the same way. And it's just like, so it's like, I don't actually feel alone. And it was like kind of validating for me because I'm like, am I going crazy and just feeling this way? And it's like, all of a sudden I started seeing more videos about it. And I'm like, I'm not the only one that's feeling this way. And probably a lot of our primos, primas, and primes also that are listening to us feel the same way as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and then another thing that I've been seeing, it's like there was a teacher that lives, I think, in like Mississippi or Kansas, and she's saying that the community that she lives in is treating her different after the election. That she's very obviously a brown woman, but when she goes out to like the department stores or her local shops, that like obviously she's living in these smaller, like more white conservative communities, and she's saying that like people are very short with her now. They don't like looking at her in the eyes. It's like it's almost like there's a shift. People are like, she feels the hate, if that makes any sense. And there's a lot more people talking about that as well on social media. So it's just messy.
That's a lot. Sorry, we were supposed to be positive on this. But yeah, I understand why.
I want to be positive.
We have to address
but we have to talk about these things because it's like, it's almost kind of like cathartic and validating for when other people hear it and they're like, oh, so I'm not the only one going through this. And we all got to stick together. So... Are you ready to jump into the case?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this case was actually suggested by one of our listeners, our prima Cristal. I don't know at what point she suggested this case. I think it's been on our spreadsheet a really, really long time, and we haven't updated this area of the spreadsheet that it was on in a really long time. So she might not even listen to us anymore, but shout out to her prima Cristal.
I like to think that she still does.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, sometimes we make references to people that used to listen to us at the very beginning, and they message us on Instagram. They're like, "We're still here."
Like, yeah, I'm still here.
I'm still here.
Stop. We're gonna get flagged. Actually,
yeah,
YouTube.
we also mentioned that. Yeah.
So there were several people asking us about like why we were censoring ourselves, or like
bleep yourselves out.
Yeah, because I mean, we did kind of mention it later in the episode. So now we're on YouTube. we want to be compliant of like stuff
Mr.
we're
and
allowed to
Mrs.
say.
YouTube
Yeah, like
are
Mr.
gonna kick us out of their home.
Yeah, we want to be compliant on what we can and can't say on YouTube. Like, we're still gonna freely speak, but the words that are not allowed, we're just gonna end up bleeping out anyway.
Yeah.
So,
And that's a whole other thing too, because like yesterday when we were recording this the first time, you were saying that some sources say you can say these words and not these.
yeah.
And then you go somewhere else and it's like, oh no, I got flagged for this and not this. And so it's like a lot of contradicting information and trying to kind of like weed out what you can bleep out and not bleep out, or what you
I know
shouldn't.
there's definitely words you shouldn't say.
Yeah.
Even like in real life settings.
Like butthole.
No, I meant like other more vulgar words.
Oh no.
I won't say them.
I want to try to guess.
No.
Can I guess? No, I'm just kidding.
Just
Okay,
go with your case.
Back to the case. All right. So this is the murder of Sherri Rasmussen. Have you heard about it before?
No, I have not.
Okay, let's pretend like I didn't already start telling you about it yesterday.
Well, you didn't get too far in it, so
Okay.
it's like I'll pay attention this time.
Yeah. The information came from a YouTube video from Bella Fori, and it's a video called Solved After 23 Years, the Case of Sherri Rasmussen. The next person I used was a YouTube video called Reporting Live from My Sofa, Reporting Live from Another Bitch's Business, The Tragic Case of Sherri Rasmussen and the Bizarre Interrogations of Stephanie Lazarus, and a Wikipedia, Murder of Sherri Rasmussen. I do want to give some trigger warnings. There's murder, there's violence, and there are guns. So if you don't like those things, maybe this is not the episode for you. All right. So Sherri Rasmussen was born on February 7th, 1957 in Walla Walla, Washington, to Nels and Loretta Rasmussen. They didn't stay there. They moved to Tucson. So she grew up in Tucson, Arizona, alongside her two sisters, Connie Connie the eldest and Teresa the youngest. And their family was said to be very close-knit. Her father, Nels, was a dentist who owned his own practice, while her mother, Loretta, managed the office full-time, ensuring a comfortable life for the family. From an early age, Sherri was always described as kind, compassionate, and having a gentle nature. She attended Tucson's Seventh-day Adventist Elementary School, where her intelligence and strong work ethic became apparent from a very young age. Her best friend from high school, Emily, described her as a consistently happy, highly intelligent, and serious-minded individual. And as we go through kind of like the beginning of the case, we'll see that like she is very much like a serious-minded person. After graduating high school, Sherri enrolled at La Sierra College in California at just 16 years old in September of 1973. Her sister Connie was already at that college pursuing a nursing degree, and by the end of her freshman year, Sherri decided to follow the same path. She applied to Loma Linda University's nursing program, where Connie was studying, and was accepted. She began all of her coursework in the fall of 1974. In June 1977, both her and her sister graduated together. So she started later and graduated at the same time.
Cute.
Hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
Determined to advance her education, Sherri pursued a master's degree in nursing at UCLA while working as a staff nurse at UCLA Medical Center to support herself financially. By March 1980, at only 23 years old, she had earned her master's degree, and by August was officially credentialed as a cardiovascular clinical nurse specialist. So she was a specialist.
Wow.
Her father purchased her a condo in Van Nuys, Unit 205 of the Balboa Townhomes. She lived there with her cat Bozo and later shared space with her best friend from UCLA, Jane. However, Sherri felt a strong sense of financial independence and insisted on paying for her living expenses, sending her father a check for the amount of the mortgage each month. The complex she lived in was well secured. It featured 6-foot-high walls and required a passcode entry if you were coming on foot or if you were in a car. So not anybody could just get in.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to her hard work and exceptional achievements, Sherri became the director of critical nursing at Glendale Adventist Hospital at just 27 years old. Having accomplished so much at a young age, she naturally turned her focus from her professional life to her personal life. So she had focused very long on becoming like very successful professionally and kind of lacked in like the interhuman area of it. So she just started to start dating. Mm-hmm. It wasn't long before she met the man who would eventually become her husband. Up until that point, Sherri had been more focused on her career than dating. That changed in May 1984 when her friend Anita invited her to a party with her fiancé and some of his friends, including a man named John Rutan. John was born on September 5th, 1958 in Eugene, Oregon, to Margaret and Richard Rutan. He had 3 siblings, his brother Tom, and sisters Gail and Janet. A tall and handsome guy, John grew up in San Diego, graduated high school in 1977, and went on to study mechanical engineering at UCLA. After earning his first degree in 1981, he landed a job as a computer engineer at Data Products, the company. Sherri, standing at an impressive 6'1", was strikingly beautiful, intelligent, and accomplished. At the party, John noticed her from across the room and was immediately captivated. He walked over to her, introduced himself, and the two hit it off instantly. He wanted to see her again, so John later got her number through a mutual friend and called her to ask her out. And this was that day that it's like nobody had a cell phone. It has to be like a house.
That's true.
A house number.
That's crazy.
Hello, is Sherri there? This is her.
This is she.
Yeah, that was a different time.
Have you seen videos of like younger people like witnessing a rotary phone for the first time?
Yeah.
And they dial it and then they're like, oh my God, it works.
What the hell? Like we used those phones growing up.
Like those dinosaur phones.
Well, like also, and not to like go off on a tangent, but when like younger people are pretending to be on the phone, they put their whole hand up to their face. Yep. And then like millennials do that little like where you do your
pinky and your
thumb and your pinky, and then you talk like that because we're used to the rotary phones or the older phones.
Yeah, that's true.
So I remember when phones went from corded to wireless. What a time.
I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention. I was a wee lad. Yeah. I had other things to do.
Okay. Anyways, so when he asked her out, Sherri actually invited him over for dinner. And she cooked him some beef stroganoff for their first date.
Is there anything she can't do?
I don't know.
I mean, she's a nurse. She went to school, graduated early, knows how to cook, pays her own bills. Like, that's an icon.
Absolutely. John described their connection as love at first sight, though Sherri's family wasn't entirely sold on him. Still, they prioritized her happiness, and she seemed truly happy with John. Their relationship progressed quickly, and by May 1985, instead of an engagement ring, they decided to mark the occasion by upgrading Sherri's car, trading in her Toyota for a 1985 BMW sedan. Around the same time, they agreed John should move into Sherri's condo. Her roommate Jane moved out on July 1st, and soon after, Nels actually transferred the ownership of the condo to both Sherri and John. On November 23rd, 1985, the couple married at the First Congregational Church in Pasadena. A few weeks later, in mid to late December, they honeymooned at Sandals Beach Resort in Jamaica before returning home to celebrate Christmas with Sherri's family in Tucson. I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, those commercials for the Sandals resorts.
Yes.
Dude,
I was thinking about the logo. I was thinking about the logo when you said it. Yeah, I'm
those commercials, dude. I was like, damn, me and my Spanish-speaking fan, we could never go to one of those. We would never be able to, because I would always think about, I was the oldest one, right? And so I was the one that had to like defend my parents. I was always the one translating. Yeah. I was always the one that like, are you being disrespectful to my parents right now because they don't speak English? Like, right? I was always the one that had like my ear out or was listening for people saying like, why don't they speak English? You know, I was always the oldest. And so, like, it would stress me out to think about going on vacation to, like, Sandals, but I wanted to so bad. Because I was like, damn, we would just have a hard time. My dad would be like,
sad.
Nomás tienen pasta, nomás es puro macaroni, esto puedo comer en la casa. Or, you know, like, they always had something to say.
Yeah.
And in those days, my parents did not go on vacation. We would go to Mexico for a month, and that was our vacation, which still was very fun, right? But it was like, we weren't like a normal, like, let's go to the Grand Canyon. Let's go to there. It wasn't like, we weren't one of those families. And I'm sure that a lot of our primos, primas, and primas can also identify with that. You didn't actually go somewhere on vacation. It was like you went to Mexico and that was a vacation.
To see family.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's sad.
That's not sad.
That got really sad really fast.
That is not sad. Those were some of the best times of my life.
I mean, it's sad because in the sense, it's like, yeah, we were raised American, but it's like, we didn't get the full American experience.
Yeah, but now as adults, like, we've gone on vacation before.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying, like, and it's not like we missed out or anything, but it's like...
that want?
Yeah.
It's like you see somebody else, like, it's always, like, the thing that we talk about. Like, we're raised Hispanic, and we're prepared for a world that our parents, like, lived through, but it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's like, now we're, like... American kids being raised with Mexican values and like all that comes along with that, but it's like we're technically like American kids, if that makes any sense. It's we've talked about it before. It gets kind of weird sometimes, but just like I remember little me wanting to go to Sandals, and maybe one day we'll go to Sandals now as adults.
I don't know. Now that I'm older, I'm like, I don't ever want to be near a beach or an ocean.
My God. Oh, yeah, after we went to Cancun.
Dude, those waves
beat your
me
ass.
dieron una arrastrada. Now that's how I felt. After those waves dragged me through the ocean, that's how I felt when I woke up this morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know what you get. And I get what you're saying. Is what I'm sorry.
You're picking up what I'm putting down.
I did kind of like grow up wondering. It's like, I wonder if my parents would ever be interested in going to like one of those resorts or something.
And now that all of us are out of the house, you've seen how my parents have been like to Mazatlan. My mom's getting on like a paraglider, and I'm like, hello, Griselda, what are you doing up there?
Well, let's not
floating.
Give her full name.
Well, yeah, you can bleep out the last name or the first name or whatever you want, but it's like, ma'am, what are you doing? This was the woman that used to yell at me to wake up on Saturdays to clean the house. And I'm like, now she's over there. She's floating up above a boat. But
now she's paragliding.
But I'm very happy for both of them that they seem to be enjoying themselves now.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the case. Sorry, like tangent. Yeah. So around the holidays, John actually left his job at Data Products for a position at Micropolis, a disk drive manufacturer. The new job required him to work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., meaning he would typically leave for work before Sherri. On the morning of Monday, February 24th, 1986, they woke up. Around 7 a.m., Sherri wasn't feeling well and considered calling in sick. John got ready and left for work at 7:20 a.m., stopping to drop off some dry cleaning before arriving at the office at 7:50 a.m. At 10 a.m., John tried to call Sherri, but she didn't answer. He tried again 30 minutes later and still no response. Assuming she had gone to work after all, he called her secretary, who said, "I haven't seen her today, but I don't normally see her on Mondays since she teaches a class and goes straight there." Something didn't feel right, though. If Sherri had gone to work, she would have turned on the answering machine before leaving, a common practice back in the 1980s, when machines had to be manually activated. But when he called the machine, it was off. That was unusual. If she had left, why didn't she turn it on? And if she was home, why wasn't she answering his calls? So around 10 a.m., Sherri's sister Teresa also called her office and received the same response from Sherri's secretary. She had called in sick that morning. Later that day, John left work at around 5 p.m., making a few stops along the way. He picked up his dry cleaning, stopped at the bank, and arrived home around 6 p.m. As he pulled up, he immediately noticed something unusual. The garage door was wide open. John was certain he had closed it when he left that morning. Their condo had quite a unique layout. The front of the unit faced the street, while the garage was located at the back, accessible via a shared driveway. Their neighbors, a couple who took daily walks, were familiar with John and Sherri, often exchanging greetings with them. That morning, as they left for their walk around 8:30 a.m., they saw that the garage door was closed, just as John had left it. But when they returned around 9:45 a.m., they noticed the garage door was open, and both cars were missing. Hours later, when John arrived at 6 p.m., the garage door was still up, and Sherri's car was nowhere to be seen. As he got closer, he noticed shattered glass scattered across the driveway. It appeared to have come from their patio doors. The condo's design featured a small patio above the garage, with 2 glass doors leading into the bedroom. Those doors had been broken. That explained the glass. Something was clearly wrong. Sherri hadn't mentioned any plans to go out, and she was always diligent about letting him know her whereabouts. Alarmed, John parked in the garage and entered the house through the door that led from the garage into the living room. The moment he stepped inside, he was met with a horrifying sight. Sherri was lying lifeless on the floor. She was still in the nightgown she had been wearing the morning when he left for work. Her body was positioned on her back, and it was immediately evident that she had been brutally attacked. Her face was swollen shut and bruised, both eyes swollen shut. Deep lacerations covered her neck, head, and body, and a distinctive bite mark was visible on her inner left forearm.
What? Like a human bite?
Yes. By the time John found her, rigor mortis had almost fully set in, indicating that she had been dead for hours. Her body was so stiff that her arms and legs were slightly elevated off the ground. Despite this, John rushed to her side, desperately searching for a pulse. Her skin was cold. Still, he tried to revive her before calling 911. Within minutes, police and paramedics arrived and began their investigation. A sexual assault examination was conducted, and forensics team swabbed the bite mark for DNA. Investigators also collected fingerprints from around the crime scene. Blood was found throughout the area, and samples were taken for further analysis. Sherri had abrasions on her wrist, indicating that she had been bound with a rope or cord at some point during the attack. Investigators found a piece of rope and some cord near the front door. Nearby, a broken vase lay shattered, and injuries to Sherri's head suggested she had been struck with it. By the front door, they discovered 2 broken fingernails, evidence that she had fought back with all her strength.
Wow.
Despite the vicious beating she had endured, the medical examiner determined that she ultimately died of gunshot wounds to the chest. Sherri had been shot 3 times with a .38 caliber handgun. 1 bullet had passed completely through her body, leaving an exit wound on her back. The other 2 remained lodged inside. In the living room, investigators discovered a colorful quilted blanket draped over a chair. It bore 2 bullet holes and powder burns, leading them to conclude that the killer had used it as a makeshift silencer to muffle the gunshots. 2 of the shots had been fired at close range, with the shooter likely pressing the quilt against Sherri's body before pulling the trigger. The 3rd shot, however, appeared to have been fired from a distance, probably from across the room. The following details were recorded in the detectives' logs upon their arrival at the crime scene.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yes.
What year was this? I think you mentioned it. It was like in the 70s, right?
Hold on, I have to go back. February 24th, 1986.
1986, okay. I'm just thinking, like, how good were forensics?
Yeah.
At that time?
We'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
So they found 2 ligature type items, which was like the ropes. A bloodstained small rope and a speaker wire were found on the entryway tile floor, partially covering the living room rug. The 2 fingernails were discovered near the front door on the tile. A closet door close to the entryway had a blood smear about a foot from the floor. Inside the closet, a wall jutted out slightly near a light socket, which was also smeared with blood. Bloodstains were found on the brown tile floor west of the light socket. A door leading to the downstairs garage was partially opened, with more blood smeared about halfway up the surface. Besides this door was a short carpeted staircase leading to the 2nd floor. At the base of the stairs, a Philco VCR was stacked on top of a Sony digital disc player with bloody fingerprints found on the disc player. In the living room, an end table with a lamp stood nearby. The drawer had been pulled out completely, with the contents spilled onto the floor. So there, like, a lot happened. Sherri and John had recently installed a home alarm system, but tragically it seemed Sherri had been unable to activate it in time. Investigators found a bloody handprint near the alarm panel, suggesting that she had tried desperately to trigger it. But the house showed clear signs of a violent struggle. In the lounge, the couple's tall stereo speaker had been torn from its usual placement. One speaker had completely been pulled off from the wall, its wire ripped out, and lay near Sherri's body. Upstairs, several shelves had been knocked over, and the glass patio doors leading to the bedroom were shattered. So it's like chaos inside the house.
Yeah.
But despite the chaos inside, investigators found no signs of forced entry. However, the lead detective on the case, Detective Lyle Mayer, quickly reached a conclusion. This was a burglary gone wrong. Rather than considering other possibilities, he moved to close the case.
What the hell?
Suspicious, huh?
Wait, you said... Who was that said that?
The detective Lyle Mayer.
Okay, so it was like a detective.
Yes.
Yeah, that is
his
weird.
reasoning. In the months leading up to Sherri's murder, a series of burglaries had been reported in the area. 2 months later, a similar break-in occurred just down the street, carried out by 2 Latino men armed with a handgun. The condo's layout was almost identical to Sherri's and John's. It was in a large complex with security walls, had a garage leading into the living room, and the burglars had attempted to steal the stereo equipment.
So, sorry. When it's deemed a burglary gone wrong, does that mean that they just won't pursue finding the perpetrator? Sorry, these are questions that you might not know, but it seems weird. It's like, it seemed like it was very much like, oh, it was a burglary, I guess we'll never know who did it. Whereas, like, if it's like a murder case...
This was the 80s too, so it was shitty police work.
Yeah.
I mean, are we surprised? Like, literally every case we ever talk about is shitty police work.
Yeah, take a listen to our last episode.
Yeah. So, at Sherri and John's condo, investigators found the VCR and digital disc players stacked near the staircase as if someone had been in the process of stealing them. So, basically, like, his thinking was, oh, like, break-ins have been happening here in the neighborhood. The layout is the same, and it looked like they were trying to steal a VCR. Like, the VCR that I talked about that was near the stairwell with blood on it. So, he's like, oh, it's probably a burglary.
Okay.
So... They really just ended up thinking that it was an attempted burglary gone wrong.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I get their their train of thought, but it just seemed like it was very much like
it was very
they
quick.
took one glance and they're like, oh,
well,
wow.
and this happened after a couple of months. Like, I'm telling you, like, what happened at the crime scene.
Oh, okay,
we don't really know, like, what details happened between then and then they decided that it was like, it's a burglary.
Gotcha.
So what the police theorize is that Sherri had come downstairs, interrupted the burglary in progress, and was killed during the ensuing struggle. Amid the chaos, the intruders appeared to have abandoned their original intent, leaving the home in disarray but ultimately stealing nothing, except for Sherri's car. Her vehicle was discovered 10 days later, approximately 2.5 miles from the condo. Oddly, the keys were still in the ignition and the car itself remained untouched. However, one peculiar item was missing from the home: John and Sherri's marriage certificate.
What?
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't take anything besides that marriage certificate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, it's just very strange. Like, there's nothing of value was taken, no forced entry.
So it seemed personal. To me, this seemed personal.
Like, already, like, to me, like, listening, like, when I was listening to this case, it sounded very personal. And we're going to find out very quickly right after this that it was very personal.
Okay.
So let's consider the details. No valuable items were taken, not even Sherri's jewelry, which was in plain sight. The house appeared ransacked, yet nothing was actually stolen, as if the scene had been arranged to look like a burglary. Despite these inconsistencies, detectives stood by their conclusion. They suspected the perpetrators were the same two Latino men responsible for a similar break-in nearby, believing that they had panicked and fled. A police sketch of these individuals was created, and the case was effectively closed. Following standard procedure, authorities briefly investigated John, as the spouse is typically a primary suspect. Mm-hmm. However, he had no discernible motive. He and Sherri had only been married for 3 months and appeared to have a very happy relationship. In fact, the day before her murder marked their 3-month anniversary, and John had given Sherri 3 roses in celebration. Additionally, John had a solid alibi. He had been at work all day, with multiple coworkers able to confirm his presence. When Sherri's parents, Nels and Loretta, were informed of her murder at 1 a.m., her father immediately voiced a suspicion. This is where it starts to get interesting.
Her father, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
You need to check out John's ex-girlfriend, he told detectives. Though he didn't know her name, Sherri had mentioned her on several occasions, describing her as obsessive, unstable, and jealous. Most significantly, she was an officer with the LAPD.
Oh.
However, detectives dismissed Nels outright, even mocking him by saying, "Stop watching so much television." John's ex-girlfriend was Stephanie Lazarus, a Los Angeles Police Department officer born on May 4th, 1960 in Santa Monica. She was the daughter of Shelton and Carol Lazarus. She and John met while attending UCLA. John was a sophomore, Stephanie a freshman. They both lived on the top floor at Dykstra Hall, where they became part of the same close-knit group of friends. Stephanie was known at that time for being athletic, outgoing, and something of a prankster. She played on the junior varsity basketball team and had a lively, energetic personality. However, it was very evident that she and John viewed their relationship quite differently. Stephanie was deeply attached to John, whereas he saw their connection as nothing more than friendship. Although they had kissed a few times in college, their relationship never progressed further. Nevertheless, they remained close, frequently spending time together, taking trips to San Diego, and even growing close to John's family. Stephanie formed relationships with John's mother Margaret, his brother Tom, and his sister Janet. Some family members even found the nature of their relationship ambiguous, unsure whether they were simply friends or something more. It sounds like he was leading her on to me.
Oh, I didn't even consider that.
John graduated from UCLA in 1981 and moved into an apartment in Canoga Park. That summer, for the first time, he and Stephanie became intimate. The following year, Stephanie earned her degree in political science and sociology, graduating in 1982. Despite no longer being in school together, they remained close, meeting up 2 or 3 times a month. Their relationship was undefined. They occasionally slept together and sometimes went on trips. Stephanie would sometimes spend the night at John's apartment. After completing her training at the LAPD Academy, she purchased a condo, and John, along with his brother Tom, helped her move in and paint, further solidifying their bond. For John's 25th birthday, Stephanie went out of her way to throw him a surprise birthday party. Meanwhile, John had been dating other women all along. From his perspective, their relationship was casual, just 2 friends who sometimes hooked up. He assumed this was obvious to her and never felt the need to clarify things with Stephanie. To him, they were simply in a friends with benefits arrangement. Stephanie, however, saw things very differently. She was deeply attached to John and wanted more. She frequently confided in friends about her heartbreak and vented her frustrations in her journal, but she never explicitly told John how she felt. Then on June 4th, 1985, Stephanie learned that John and Sherri were engaged, and the news devastated her. She recorded her emotions in her diary as, "We didn't do much. I didn't feel like working. I found out that John is getting married. I was very depressed. This is very bad. My concentration was -10. That night, unable to cope with the news, Stephanie called John in tears. She pleaded with him to come over, saying she really needed to see him. John agreed. At the time, it was still mid-1985. He and Sherri had not yet moved in together. Whether Sherri even knew about Stephanie remains unclear, but John certainly didn't tell her where he was going that night. When John arrived, Stephanie was still crying. He later admitted that in the 7 years he had known her, he had never seen her this distraught. Through tears, she finally confessed her feelings. "I love you. I've loved you all this time. I just couldn't let you get married without telling you." John gently told her that he didn't feel the same way. Stephanie seemed to accept this and made one last request. "Okay, but can I sleep with you one last time?" And John agreed.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He justified it by convincing himself that Stephanie needed closure, that sleeping with her one final time might somehow help her move on. But at that point, he was already engaged to Sherri, making his reasoning difficult to defend. The reality was that he had been sleeping with Stephanie for 7 years, fully aware that her feelings were stronger than his. He knew she wouldn't be the one to walk away because she cared too much. Yet he never took the responsibility to end things. Now, the moment his ex got emotional, he just cheated on his fiancée.
Wow.
Yeah. Whatever his justification, that night marked the final time he and Stephanie were together. A month or two later, in July or August, Stephanie took a day off from the LAPD duties and decided to make an unannounced visit to Glendale Adventist Medical Center, where Sherri was working. She arrived, and I want to clarify that...
What was it, in uniform? Or was it like as a civilian?
I was about to tell you that.
Oh, sorry.
I was about to tell you that.
Yeah.
I don't understand the whole thing about dressing provocatively, but it was described as her being dressed provocatively. She was wearing tiny sport shorts and a tight tank top, and that to me is just like another outfit that I would wear any day of the week.
Yeah.
But I guess like at this time, in that context, I would see where this was like deemed as like skimpy or something.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So Stephanie approached Sherri's secretary and asked if she was available. Upon learning that Sherri was out for lunch, she decided to wait. When Sherri returned, Stephanie wasted no time. She walked straight up to her and asked her for a private conversation. The two women entered Sherri's office and shut the door behind them. A few minutes later, Stephanie emerged and left. Sherri, however, remained inside for a little while longer. When she finally stepped out, it was obvious she had been crying. Her secretary later recalled and said she looked visibly shaken. Unable to continue working, Sherri decided to leave early, too upset to finish her shift.
Wow.
That evening, Sherri called her parents and recounted the encounter. She told them that Stephanie had threatened her, saying if she can't have him, nobody can. She also claimed Stephanie smugly remarked that when their marriage inevitably failed, she would be there to pick up the pieces. Sherri also noted that Stephanie had deliberately dressed in a revealing outfit, seemingly to flaunt her athletic physique. Her father, Nels, could tell she was distraught. Later that night, John came home. Sherri told him everything. But she also shared something she had mentioned to her parents. Stephanie had confessed that John had recently been to her apartment and they had slept together.
Oof.
John did not deny it. He admitted to cheating, called it a terrible mistake, and begged Sherri not to let it ruin their relationship. Despite the betrayal, Sherri chose to forgive him, and John promised to cut off all contact with Stephanie. However, he never confronted her about the hospital visit. A few months later, on August 6, 1985, Stephanie sent a letter to John's mother. She wrote, "Dear Miss Rutten, I want to thank you for the pictures. The reason it has taken me so long to respond is because I had to build up my courage. For now, I don't know when or if I'll ever see you or the family again, but I do want you to know a few things. I'm truly in love with John, and this past year has torn me up. I wish it hadn't ended the way it did, and I don't think I'll ever understand John's decision. I do want you to know that your family has meant so much to me. I really have learned a lot from all of you. And I hope someday I can find something that I care for as much. I hope if you ever need anything, you'll contact me. Love always, Stephanie. P.S. Say hello to your husband and Janet." Unhinged.
That seemed very... Yes, I want to say unhinged, but it also seemed very, like, threatening a little bit.
Why?
I don't know. I get like a threatening vibe from it. So at this point, had she already committed the crime?
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
But Stephanie wasn't finished. Sometime between December 1985 and January 1986, she unexpectedly showed up at John and Sherri's condo, uninvited and unannounced. She was carrying a pair of skis and with exaggerated sweetness says, "John, oh John, can you please wax my skis for me?" Sherri later told her father that the visit made her deeply uncomfortable. Stephanie lingered for much longer than Sherri was comfortable with, and in the end, it was Sherri who had to ask her to leave because John didn't have the nerve to do it himself. Before she left, Sherri asked John not to take Stephanie's skis. He took them anyway. Then she asked him not to wax them. He did it anyway.
What is wrong with this guy?
Men. John justified it by telling himself, if I just wax the skis, that'll be the end of it, and she'll leave us alone forever. I don't really think that he was... Is he really this naive, or is he stupid?
That's a 50-50.
God. The following week, Stephanie showed up again, unannounced. No one had invited her, and Sherri was beginning to wonder how she was even getting into the complex. John and Sherri lived in a gated community like I mentioned before. You need the key card for entry either if you're on foot or in the car. Mm-hmm. Yet somehow Stephanie kept finding a way in. This time the visit was brief. She picked up her freshly waxed skis and left. Looking back, Sherri's father Nels had a theory. Nels started to wonder if Stephanie's visit hadn't really been about the skis. Maybe she had come over to scope out their home to familiarize herself with where John and Sherri lived. And it's important to note that Sherri never actually told her father Stephanie's name. She only ever referred to her as John, quote-unquote John's ex.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So when Nell spoke to the police, he kept insisting, check out the ex-girlfriend. I know she's an LAPD officer. I don't know her name. Ask John. But please just look into this woman. But Stephanie wasn't finished. One weekend morning in mid-January, Sherri stayed home a little later than usual before heading to work. John had already left for his new job, leaving her alone in the apartment. At around 10 a.m., Stephanie suddenly appeared in their living room. Sherri never heard her enter. She had no idea how she got in.
Oh my God.
Even more unsettling, Stephanie was wearing her LAPD uniform as if she had just dropped by during a break. Shocked, it said that Sherri blurted out, "What the frick?" Stephanie remained completely unfazed. "Oh, I'm here to see John," she said casually. Standing her ground, Sherri responded, Get out of my house and don't come back." Weird. Okay. That night, she told her father what had happened. She also shared something that deeply frustrated him. John refused to stand up to Stephanie. Sherri and Nels even discussed reporting Stephanie's behavior but Sherri hesitated. She feared that going to the LAPD and accusing one of their officers of harassment would only make things worse for her. And sadly, she does have a point. That department specifically at that time had a reputation for protecting its own, and Sherri suspected that if she filed a report, the police officer would just brush it off. Around this time, Sherri confided in her parents that she also felt like somebody was watching her.
What the hell?
One evening, while she and John were having dinner at an open-plan restaurant, she noticed someone staring at her. But as soon as she made eye contact, the person moved to a different spot. Later, when recounting the incident to her father, she said the person was dressed like a boy, which likely meant it was a woman. Adding to the unease, strange phone calls had been coming in ever since John moved into Sherri's apartment. For months, about once a week, they'd receive a call only for the caller to remain silent before hanging up. They never found out who this was. Meanwhile, over at Stephanie's condo, her roommate, Michael Hargraves, was noticing a pattern. He later revealed that Stephanie constantly talked about John. She told him she was in love with him. That was her standard, and that she struggled to find another man because she wanted someone tall, athletic, and handsome, just like John. One night, she came home in tears. She told Michael she was heartbroken because John had dumped her. She also mentioned the incident at the hospital with Sherri and dismissed her, saying that she wasn't even that good looking. Michael eventually moved out just 2 weeks before everything happened, which was the murder. Mm-hmm. After all these incidents, Nels was convinced this wasn't some random burglary gone wrong. He kept pleading with the police, look into the ex-girlfriend, please just look into her, but they didn't. Detective Mayer never once interviewed Stephanie. He never wrote her name down on the case note. He failed to document that multiple times both Nels and John had mentioned her. And most importantly, he never even considered her a suspect. The LAPD has a standard document used in every homicide investigation. It's called the chrono, short for chronological log. This document was crucial. It meticulously recorded every investigative step, sometimes down to the minute. If a detective retired or a new one needed to take over the case, they would simply pick up the chrono and instantly be up to speed on what was happening after reading through it. Mm-hmm. There was always a handwritten version, which was later typed up, but the original, that was never supposed to be discarded. Yet in this case, the first 3 months of the handwritten chrono mysteriously vanished. Lost, they said, or conveniently misplaced. So after that detective retired, the chrono went missing.
That's weird.
3 months. After that, the case notes fixated almost entirely on the burglary theory. For months, the LAPD focused all their energy on tracking down 2 burglary suspects, completely dismissing any other possibilities. And the only mention of Stephanie in the entire case file, one brief note. John Rutten called Stephanie Lazarus verified PO police officer was former girlfriend. That was it. And just like that, the case went cold.
Wow.
Though it wasn't officially closed, the LAPD had effectively stopped investigating. For years, Nels and Loretta Rasmussen repeatedly reached out to the police, desperate for any updates. Then in 1993, Detective Mayer retired. So, I was wrong. Maybe the chrono went missing right after the murder, 3 months after the murder happened. The chrono went missing. There was only the typed up version. So, sorry, I knew he was retiring, so that's why I said retiring. But he actually retired in 1993.
Okay.
Then in 1993, Detective Mayer retired. The Rasmussens were hopeful.
Sorry, was that the end of it? Like, it's just a cold case?
Kind of. Like, it's not closed, but they're not investigating it at this point anymore.
Okay. Sorry, continue.
The Rasmussens started being hopeful again because maybe a new detective on the case would finally take it seriously. At the same time, DNA testing was advancing rapidly. Cold cases were being reopened. Long unsolved murders were finally getting solved. Nels clung to hope that maybe now they could test the DNA evidence from Sherri's case and finally get some answers. He scheduled a meeting with the new detective assigned to the case, eager for the progress. Instead, they shut him down. We have no new leads. This was for a burglary. They claimed they lacked the funds for DNA testing, and worst of all, we don't have any suspects to compare the DNA against. Nels even offered to pay for the testing himself, but they refused. No thanks, they told him, not interested. And just like that, they dismissed him completely. They told him to move on with his life, and the case, it went cold again. Meanwhile, John and Stephanie reconnected.
What the?
Before they did, though, John made a phone call to the detectives handling Sherri's case. He asked them point blank, I just want to make sure there's no connection between Stephanie and my wife's case. Like, there's no possibility that she was involved, right? Why did he have to call just to make sure? I think he, had a feeling that she had something to do with it.
I think he may have been involved. Or if not involved, he knew from the beginning what happened.
Dude, I don't know.
Because it's like, what enemies would she have? And isn't that usually the first question that they ask when they're investigating?
It's first the spouse, and then it's what enemies does she have?
That's true.
Yeah. Regardless, John and Stephanie went on a scuba diving trip to Hawaii together along with some old college friends, and at some point they ended up sleeping together twice. But this didn't turn into a real relationship. Eventually they lost contact. Stephanie finally moved on, and in 1996 married another LAPD officer, Scott Young, and together they adopted a daughter. John moved on too. He got married. He started a family, and for years, the truth about what really happened to Sherri remained buried. After everything Stephanie put her through, the harassment, the stalking, the manipulation, John still got involved with her after Sherri's death. That speaks a lot about his character.
Yeah.
The that he was doing from the very beginning was suspect. And he cheated on her.
Yeah, I was going to say, read the room, but at the same time, it's no, he was kind of complicit and just a piece of shit too.
Yeah. Well, this is the worst part. Meanwhile, all this was happening, Stephanie thrived. She climbed the ranks with the LAPD, becoming a highly respected officer. While the Rasmussens mourned their daughter, and while Sherri's case sat untouched in a box, Stephanie built her career without suspicion. No one questioned her, and for years she got away with it. Stephanie started out in the DARE program, speaking at schools and about dangers of drugs. She even made an appearance on Family Feud during a special called America's Finest.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it featured law enforcement officers. From there, she steadily moved up the ranks, eventually landing into an internal officer's position, internal affairs. So the very unit responsible for investigating corrupt police officers.
Oh,
it's like when companies are like, "We're gonna audit ourselves." I'm
it's we've done with the audit. Turns out we didn't do anything wrong.
We're badass. We're great. Of course we didn't make any mistakes. That's weird.
Yikes. I'm rolling my eyes so hard.
Then in 2008, she joined the Elite Art Theft and Fraud Division, one of LAPD's most high-profile units. This department handled major cases, ones that brought media attention and prestige. Throughout her entire career, Stephanie had never faced any disciplinary action. She was even named Detective of the Year twice. To the outside world, she was a respected, successful officer, but behind the scenes, her darkest remained buried.
Okay.
By the early 2000s, DNA technology had made huge advancements, and the LAPD had received a $50 million budget to reopen cold cases, and they started testing old evidence in hopes of solving long-forgotten murders. Or crimes, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
As part of this effort, in 2003, a detective submitted Sherri Rasmussen's case for DNA testing. Nothing happened. It wasn't until December 2004 that a lab technician named Jennifer Francis finally picked it up. She began running tests on evidence, blood samples, fingerprints, scrapings, everything that was submitted. All of it came back as Sherri's DNA. Then Francis turned her attention to the most crucial piece of evidence, the saliva swab from the bite mark on Sherri's arm. But there was a problem. It was on her list of evidence, but she couldn't find it. So Francis literally searched everywhere, but the swabs were nowhere to be found. The coroner's office spent 6 hours digging through their freezers before they finally uncovered it. It's almost as if somebody had hidden it.
Holy
Yeah.
Sorry, you said it was swabs from Sherri's mouth?
From the bite mark that was on her arm.
Oh, okay.
Francis sent the swab in for testing. In January 2005, the results came back, and they revealed what they revealed changed everything. The bite marks belonged to a female that was not Sherri. Obviously, she's not going to bite herself. Immediately, Francis ran the DNA through CODIS, the National Criminal Database, and no matches. That alone was strange. But what happened next to her was even stranger because Francis reached out to the detective on the case and told him what she had found, and his response was, huh? Well, maybe it was a female burglar, or maybe a woman helped the male burglars. That explanation didn't sit right with her. As she combed through the case file, she noticed that one woman's name appeared, and it was another nurse from the hospital where Sherri worked. So she asked the detective, what about this woman? She didn't even name the person, just referred to as the other woman. The detective's response, oh, you mean the LAPD officer? Nah, she wasn't involved. Francis froze. She wasn't even talking about the police officer. There was no mention of...
Got him.
Yeah, there was no mention...
Knew. And this was the detective, right?
The newer detective on the case, yes.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like the one that
after
retired.
the original one retired.
Okay.
There was no mention of one in any of the case files she had reviewed, yet somehow that's exactly where the detective's mind went. He shut the conversation down and said it was just a female burglar. He insisted, and just like that, the case went cold again. It wasn't until February 2nd, 2009 that Sherri's case finally got the attention it deserved. This time, Detective Jim Nuttall picked up the file, and as he combed through the case notes, he saw the same official story that had been accepted for decades. A burglary gone wrong, 2 male suspects. Then he looked at the DNA results. A female's DNA had been found at the scene. Suddenly it clicked. Something wasn't adding up. Finally, a detective with common sense had entered the picture.
Finally.
He just knew what he was doing. Nuttall wasted no time. He took the file straight to his supervisors, Robert Bubb, and this time, the truth was finally about to come out. Bubb took the case seriously and assigned 2 more detectives, Mark Martinez and Pete Barba, to assist in the investigation. Martinez and Barba began meticulously combing through the case notes, searching for any potential female suspects. They compiled a list of 5 women mentioned in the files and sent out to eliminate them one by one, comparing their DNA to the saliva swab from the bite mark on Sherri's arm. 3 names were ruled out quickly: Sherri's mother, Loretta Rasmussen, her sister, Teresa Rasmussen, and their former roommate, Jane. The 4th name was Deborah Putnam, a nurse who reportedly had conflicts with Sherri's after taking over her old job. Detectives discreetly obtained a discarded DNA sample from Deborah, and she was eliminated too. That just left one name, Stephanie Lazarus. The realization was kind of chilling because Stephanie wasn't just any suspect. She was a well-respected, high-ranking LAPD detective with deep connections throughout the department. If she was involved, investigating her would be incredibly risky. The detectives knew that they had to proceed with absolute caution and secrecy, since Stephanie worked in the same building as them.
Oh my god.
Yes. They couldn't afford to leave any paper trails or let word get out. They gave her a codename named Number 5 and kept the case strictly on a need-to-know basis.
I have a question.
Yes.
So how old was this lady?
This Stephanie?
Yes.
At this point, I don't know. It was 2009.
Because if it happened, I had to have been, what, 30, almost 30 years by the time?
I think so, because it happened in like 86.
Okay. So
This
yeah,
was
around
2009.
30-ish. So ya estaba grande, right?
Yeah.
And she was married with kids.
Yep.
Oh.
The LAPD had a long history of protecting its own, and the last thing they wanted was for Stephanie to find out she was being investigated. Or worse, for the case to be buried before they can prove the truth. As they dug deeper, they uncovered something even more disturbing. Back in the mid-1980s, LAPD officers were known to carry .38 calibers as a backup for off-duty weapons. So it was like their off-duty weapon.
Okay.
The gun used to kill Sherri was a .38 caliber revolver. That alone was significant, but then detectives ran Stephanie's name through the state's gun registry, and what they found was even more suspicious. Just 13 days after Sherri's murder, Stephanie had filed a police report in Santa Monica. But instead of reporting it to her own LAPD department, she had chosen a different agency. According to the report, someone had broken into her car and stolen a blue gym bag. Inside the bag, she claimed, were cassette tapes, clothes, and most notably a .38 caliber 5-shot Smith & Wesson revolver. So this seemed very convenient for them right after the murder.
Yeah.
By filing the report, Stephanie had created a paper trail, an excuse for why her backup weapon was no longer in her possession if anyone ever came asking. But for investigators, it meant one frustrating thing. They couldn't prove or disprove whether the missing gun had been the murder weapon. They needed something stronger, so they needed her DNA. For the next week, undercover officers trailed Stephanie, waiting for the perfect opportunity. All they needed was for her to drink something, throw it away, and leave it behind. Finally, on May 28, 2008, they got their break. Guess where they got her stuff from? Her DNA from?
Oh my God. Don't make me guess.
Guess. It was Costco.
Whoa.
She grabbed a pizza and a soda and sat down to eat. When she finished it, she tossed it in the trash bin and walked away. Immediately, they swooped and got the cup and maybe the plate out of the trash.
Wow.
Crazy. Like, they got her because of some Costco pizza.
Oh, that's a good pizza, honestly.
And if it was a match, Stephanie Lazarus would no longer be untouchable. When the DNA results came back, they confirmed an exact match between Stephanie Lazarus and the saliva found on the bite mark on Sherri Rasmussen's arm. With this crucial evidence in hand, detectives reported Bub and Jim Nuttall brought the case to two other detectives, Dan Jaramillo and Greg Stearns. Since Jaramillo and Stearns were relatively new and had no prior connection to Stephanie, they could approach the case with complete objectivity. Something critical given the sensitivity of the situation. Like, they wanted to make sure that, she didn't get out because it's conflict of interest, or these people know me or something like that. They didn't want the case. They knew at this point it was so sensitive. Mm-hmm. They needed to put her in jail.
And they needed to be careful about it.
Yes, and they needed to be very careful. So Jaramillo and Stearns presented the evidence to the district attorney and secured a warrant for Stephanie's arrest. However, they knew they had to be strategic. A dramatic arrest at LAPD headquarters would alert other officers, create unnecessary complications, or even give Stephanie an opportunity to react. Instead, they devised a careful plan. Rather than arresting her outright, they staged a fake interview in the jail area of LAPD headquarters located in the basement. This was a calculated move because officers have to relinquish their firearms before actually entering the jail, ensuring that Stephanie would be unarmed and wouldn't be able to retaliate. They were worried about
her getting violent?
Yes.
Really? Oh my God.
Okay. So to lure her in, detectives approached Stephanie and told her that they needed her assistance interviewing a suspect in an art theft case, which is the department she worked at the time.
Yeah.
Since she worked in the art theft division, this seemed like a routine request, and she agreed without suspicion. They led her downstairs into an empty interrogation room because, of course, the suspect didn't actually exist. For the next hour and 10 minutes, they questioned Stephanie, gradually tightening the noose around her. The entire interrogation was recorded and to this day is available fully on YouTube.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
I did not.
You said it was an hour?
It's an hour and 10 minutes, and the reason why is because when I was watching some of the videos of the YouTube videos that I use for information, they had pieces clipped in to the video.
Ooh.
So it's I saw the most important parts.
I don't know why that gave me chills.
So at this point, they interviewed her, and so I'm gonna give you the highlights.
Okay.
At first, Stephanie appeared calm and cooperative, believing she was simply there to assist with an art theft case. But when detectives shifted the conversation to Sherri Rasmussen's murder, her demeanor slowly began to change. She admitted to knowing John Rutten in college and acknowledged that they had dated, but she downplayed the relationship, claiming it was casual and implying that she wasn't even sure if John considered her a girlfriend. When asked if she had ever met Sherri, she hesitated. Initially, she claimed she didn't remember, but when pressed, she vaguely recalled that Sherri was a nurse or something, struggling to provide any further details, acting like, I don't know, I don't really remember her. Detectives then brought up accounts from Sherri's friends who stated that Stephanie had issues with Sherri and may have even confronted her. Stephanie denied remembering any incidents. Then the crucial moment came. Detectives mentioned that DNA had been recovered from the crime scene and asked if she would voluntarily provide a DNA sample. And that's when everything changed. Stephanie became visibly nervous. She started repeating phrases like, "This is crazy and I just can't believe it." As the detectives pressed further, she grew increasingly flustered and defensive, repeatedly insisting that she was in shock and couldn't believe anyone would accuse her of such a thing. But then as soon as the detectives read her Miranda rights, making it clear that she was now a suspect, she immediately asked for a lawyer, bringing the interrogation to an abrupt end.
Oh my God.
So, during the conversation, what tipped off the detectives? Several key behaviors during the interrogation raised more red flags. Hesitation and memory lapses. She struggled to recall basic details such as whether she had ever met Sherri despite knowing John for years. Minimizing of her past with John. She downplayed the relationship even though later evidence showed that she had been obsessed with him. The demeanor shift when DNA was mentioned. When the possibility of DNA evidence came up, she transitioned from cooperative to defensive. And then her overuse of the phrase, "I'm in shock." It almost seemed like she was trying to convince herself rather than the detectives. And then all culminating in the immediate shutdown. The moment things got serious, she asked for a lawyer. One of the most common reactions of a guilty suspect. But I think anybody asks for lawyers.
I mean, everyone should ask for a lawyer.
Yeah. So
if you have the right to a lawyer, use that right.
I guess it was like she was very willing to talk at first, but then when got serious, she's like, "I need a lawyer."
Well, yeah, as soon as she said, like, "Oh, there's no way to get out of this."
Yep. With the DNA match confirmed in her behavior during questioning, it only added to the suspicion. Detectives knew that they had finally had what they needed. Stephanie Lazarus, once a respected LAPD detective, was no longer untouchable. Detectives knew that they had to continue being extremely careful. Stephanie was a seasoned cop who knew her rights and had years of law enforcement experience. To keep the conversation casual, they deliberately mispronounced John Rutten's name, asking, "Oh, do you know John Routine?"
And she corrected it.
And Stephanie immediately corrected them to, "Oh, John Rutten," Oof. To which they casually responded, "Yeah, that one." They explained that they were looking into this case, knew he was an ex-boyfriend of hers, and simply wanted to get a better understanding. To put her at ease, they reassured her they didn't want anyone overhearing and spreading gossip, emphasizing that this was not an official interview, quote unquote. She was free to leave at any time and was not under arrest. What she didn't know is that there was officers stationed outside ready to take her in case if she tried to walk out.
Yeah.
Toward the end of the conversation, they casually asked, "Hey, can we get a DNA sample from you? We just want to eliminate you. Tick all of our boxes due to our due diligence." This question immediately put her on the defensive. "Wow, I can't believe you're accusing me," she said. Suddenly uneasy, she refused to provide a DNA sample without speaking to her lawyer first. Shortly after the interview, detectives made their move. Stephanie Lazarus was arrested. She was formally charged with murder, pleaded not guilty, and her bail was set at an astonishing $10 million.
Oof.
The high bail amount was due to her being a major flight risk, compounded by the fact that her husband was also an LAPD officer. With her deep connections and access to firearms, the situation was even more precarious. Her trial began on February 6, 2012. Throughout the proceedings, Stephanie maintained her innocence. While no one knows the exact sequence of events that took place in Sherri Rasmussen's home, the prosecution laid out their theory. They believe Sherri was upstairs in her bedroom when Stephanie entered the house. The method of entry was uncertain. John couldn't recall if the front door had been locked, but there was strong evidence to suggest Stephanie had been learning how to lockpick. In the months leading up to the murder, she had been showing off lockpicking tools she had acquired. Investigators later discovered 2 books in her possession: The Complete Guide to Professional Locksmithing and Modern Locksmithing. Even more chilling, a journal entry from the week of the murder referencing lockpicking further supported the idea that she had broken in. This would explain why there was no signs of forced entry and why she was randomly in the house that one day.
She was just standing there?
Yeah, she was like,
"That's crazy.
Oh, didn't know you were home." Once inside, Stephanie allegedly confronted Sherri in the bedroom and fired a shot that went straight through her, shattering the patio glass doors.
So she literally just went in, didn't say anything, just shot her? Like, they didn't have a conversation?
This is the theory.
Oh, okay.
This is the theory from the defense.
The defense?
Wait.
Like her guys? Her lawyer?
Hold on.
No, I'm just asking because it's like her lawyer's like, yeah, my client just went in, just started shooting.
Prosecution. This is the theory from the prosecution.
Okay, that makes more sense.
I don't watch lawyer shows, okay? The last one I watched was How to Get Away with Murder.
Iconic. Anyway.
Okay. This explains why glass fragments were found scattered on the driveway outside. A violent struggle followed. The house was left in chaos. Items strewn everywhere, objects pulled straight from the walls, and clear signs of a desperate fight. Sherri suffered severe injuries, including a bite mark, and some of her fingernails had been torn off in the struggle. Eventually, Stephanie retrieved her gun and, using a quilt to muffle the sound, fired 2 more shots into Sherri's chest, killing her. A disturbing detail that emerged later was the bite mark on Sherri's arm was likely inflicted after she was dying, or like
after she had shot her.
Yes,
oh
basically
my God.
like after she was dead, she had to get that last like hit in, I guess.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Throughout the trial, prosecutors exposed multiple instances of misconduct within the LAPD.
Sorry, and if I can say something, it's crazy that she did that because that was literally what what's the word? Indicted her? No.
Incriminated
her. That's the one thing that incriminated her. Because if it was a DNA swap, if she had not done that, who knows if she would have been caught.
She would have still been out there free. Yep. Stephanie had never even been questioned as a suspect, and her name had been suspiciously left off of everything. They have left off her name from notes.
Mm-hmm.
The LAPD's failure to investigate her wasn't just negligence; it seemed deliberate. If they truly believed she was innocent, why not interview her and rule her out like a regular suspect?
Mm-hmm.
Why all this singing and dancing around it? 3 months of records were missing from the case's chronological log, and despite multiple mentions of John's ex-girlfriend, Stephanie's name appeared only once, buried in a tiny note. The LAPD had not only ignored evidence, but actively tried to conceal it, as it seemed. They had even destroyed DNA samples, likely in an attempt to prevent it from being traced back to her. The only reason the crucial saliva sample was found was that it had been forgotten in the back of a freezer for 18 years. It was clear that either they had suspected Stephanie all along or had known she was guilty and worked to cover her. By the end of the trial, the jury deliberated just over 24 hours. On March 8, 2012, they returned their verdict. Stephanie Lazarus was found guilty of first-degree murder. 3 days later, on March 11th, my birthday, the judge sentenced her to 27 years to life in prison, with an additional 2 years for personal use of a firearm. However, due to credit for good behavior and time already served, she was granted over 1,000 days off her sentence.
Wait. Say that one more time.
However, due to credit for good behavior and time already served, she was granted over 1,000 days off her sentence.
What the?
So this whole time when she got arrested, she was in jail.
Oh, okay.
And so they were like, "Oh, we'll take off the days that you've already been in."
I'll never understand that concept.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she's so well behaved. We got to be nice to her.
Yeah. And Stephanie immediately filed an appeal, but it was denied and her conviction was upheld. Meanwhile, the Rasmussen family attempted to sue the LAPD for mishandling the case. They had repeatedly pointed law enforcement towards Stephanie. Why do I keep saying that? They had repeatedly pointed law enforcement towards Stephanie. Again, what the dude?
You just keep going. We all understand.
Only to be ignored. And in the end, she turned out to be the killer. Tragically, due to the statute of limitations, the family was unable to pursue legal action after 1998.
Wow.
And that is the full story of the murder of Sherri Rasmussen. Crazy.
That was crazy. I don't know why I was so invested in this. Like, this is probably the one case that I feel like I've asked you so many questions and jumped in and said,
I'm telling you, this is
so sad.
I was locked in when I was watching these videos and reading the Wikipedia. I was locked in. I was like, holy
To our listeners, he literally finished his notes 21 pages on a document in one day. He was locked in.
No, it took me a couple days to finish this one.
I'm just talking
but I was locked in. I looked like Kermit the Frog typing on that typewriter. I was like,
yeah. No, I saw you
typing in.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
I mean, I like to see the silver lining that at least
she was arrested.
She was arrested.
She's off the streets. She got her comeuppance.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it sucks being in a position like her family where it's like, they're like, no, the answer's right here. Like, I'm telling you, like, the answer's right here. Like, please look into this. Like, I'm asking you, please look into this. And they're like, nah. I can't imagine, like, defending your coworkers over something like that. Like, yeah, I love my coworkers. I love my friends. Hold on. But I'm saying, like,
I don't.
I'm saying, like, if my friends were to do something messed up, I'm not gonna defend them. That sounds weird. But you know what I mean? Like, there's some things where it's like, oh, that's not too bad. But this person literally committed a murder. And you were willing to put your name, like, on the line and be like, I'm not going to say anything.
Yep. You know, like, sometimes I feel like I'm sorry to everybody that's close to me, but if the police came and said, we're investigating this person for murder, I'd be like, take them away. Go investigate them.
Like, actually, she right here right now.
This is above me right now because there has been, and you know, us investigating true crime, there is too many cases where the person closest to this, like the murder victim or like the victim, it was the closest person to them. And it's like, it would be stupid of me, and I'm sorry, like, to just consider anything else. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm not going to say that you're guilty, but I'm not going to say, oh, don't take him. I'm going to be like, investigate him. Eliminate him as a suspect.
Like, at least, like, think of, like, have some empathy towards the victims' families, too. It's like, imagine if the roles were reversed. Like, you lost someone, and now someone else is defending them? Defending the perpetrator? Like, I would want my relative to have justice in that.
Yep.
Like, if I was the father...
And too many people do not get justice. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I'm going to get out of the way and let the police do their work, even though they can barely do it most of the time. But I'm going to get out of the way. And I always think of, like, all those old novelas or TV shows where it's like, you didn't believe me. I was getting questioned by the police and I was trying to tell you and you didn't believe me. And I'm like, and I'm not, you know what? That's not my job. That's the police job. That's the police's job to investigate you.
I'm just a girl.
And I would look and I'd be like, dude, I would be in her position. He would be mad at me too, because I would have been like, investigate him.
And I love how those forensic people, I don't know what their title is, forensic doctors? I don't know. Forensic people, they were like, no, something is off. I'm going to push this further. Like, it sucks that one person felt like she, like, hit a wall in the investigation, but she made a huge progress when she's like, oh, this is a woman, like a female DNA. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
And I mean, I feel for the Rasmussens. Like, it's terrible. Like, they lost their daughter, and she was, like, in the prime of her life.
Literally, yeah.
Okay, so that was very serious. So what are we going to talk about for the palate cleanser?
Honestly, I feel like that was so serious that I feel like I'm still kind of sitting in this and just kind of thinking about it. But I do have, like, I can bring up, like, two. They're not that, like, jokey like we usually are. The first one, several people have, especially Lil Peepee on TikTok, big fan. They tagged us that Bobby Mackey's Music World, which we covered in an episode in Spanish, it was torn down in December.
Damn.
So officially,
we kind of knew though. Like, we knew that it was going to happen, but we didn't know when.
Yeah. No, they said that it closed down and that eventually it was going to get torn down. But officially, December 10, 2024, for my birthday.
Damn.
They opened
those spirits are flying around.
The gate to hell. But yeah, they said the well was exposed, and I'm like, ooh,
the hole.
The hole. Please don't say that.
Oh my god.
I did also want to bring up one other thing, and then we can call it a night because it has been a while. This was a very long case, and it was really good, very well detailed, very well researched. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I do want, and maybe we can cover this in an episode, but there is a documentary on Hulu called Sugarcane. And I'm only suggesting it because, one, I haven't seen it, and maybe I'm, putting it out there that people should watch it, and then maybe in the next episode we can talk about it. But it is the overview says, an investigation into abuse and missing children at an Indian residential school sparks a reckoning on the nearby sugarcane reserve. So it's a documentary about like mistreatment at these like boarding schools where they like basically kidnapped native kids and made like forced them to assimilate. So, and a lot of that stuff, like there's still, the effects are still felt today.
There's people that are still dealing with trauma because of it to now.
Yeah, I mean, people that went through it are still alive, but even then, like that has a generational effect to other, like to the children and grandchildren. So I'm just putting it out there. I don't know, maybe we all can watch it and then we'll talk about it in the next episode. I don't know. Maybe
that'd be kind of exciting. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of I want to get back into documentaries because
it's been a while since
I've only been playing like Final Fantasy X for days, and I'm like,
it's been consuming your life.
I need something different.
Well, before then, we were playing Minecraft a lot. It's, you know, it's fair. There's a lot going on, and it's kind of like a cozy game to be able to kind of disconnect from everything. And so, like, we're allowed to do those things.
Well, also, like, I don't want to go out.
Yeah,
it's too cold.
True.
Now that it's at least warmer, like, I don't know. We'll be voyaging.
All right. Well, this episode was definitely an interesting one, and we hope to hear from you guys. Any story suggestions or anything, please send them in.
Yeah, comment down below because we're on YouTube now.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks for listening. Please follow us on Instagram at Get Spooky Podcast and on TikTok at Get Spooky Podcast. Also, email us any story suggestions or your own scary stories at getspookypodcast@gmail.com. Special thanks to Taylor Turner for the artwork, Kyle Fields for the intro music, and Leonardo for the logo redesign. Also, don't forget to tell someone you love how much they mean to you. Goodbye.
Bye.